Hello, namaste. This is Timothy Halloran, living human extraordinaire, and this is a bi-weekly astrological forecast, this being for the 22nd of March 2016. Yeah, this video is coming out later than I would have hoped, and it seems like it's been forever since I've talked to you guys. I mean, these last several weeks have been some majorly shaking up, I'm even going to say existentially heavy and existentially draining weeks that we've been in. And so we've got to talk a little bit about what's gone on these last couple weeks, and then we've got to talk about a lunar eclipse that is falling tomorrow. So this isn't directed at anyone in particular, but I look out into the world, I see many so-called astrologers, and basically year after year they say the same things. You know, sun goes into Pisces, full moon in Pisces, solar eclipse in Pisces. So it's a magical time. It's a time of love. It's a time of spirituality. It's a time of dissolving. And, you know, it's not that these things aren't true, but the last several weeks, I mean, this has not been your typical Pisces season. We had the solar eclipse square to Saturn. Everything in Pisces has been square to Saturn. Fortunately, we just had the Sun and Mercury leave Aries within the last several days. But, you know, I think this is somewhat typical of many of us. I think many of the demographic here can relate to the experience of feeling like we're not really doing the best job we can, feeling like we're not really as happy as we should be, feeling that we're not quite up to spiritual standard. And so this is why I mentioned, that, this isn't always helpful. And sometimes we go out and we join these spiritual communities, and it's just like, oh, well, the purpose of human life is to feel completely satisfied and happy, and if you meditate for 2 hours a day, you will achieve happiness, and then all will be well. And so we have these ingrained teachings, and they don't always help us when the times aren't totally easy. In fact, it has a funny way of taking our bad experiences and making them worse rather than helping us. And so I don't know why, but I just find myself constantly being this person who is saying it's okay to feel bad. We're not really in this period of feeling great, feeling full, feeling life. I mean, these last several weeks, and we're going to talk about how, of course, this is a cycle, which means that things do change. Things are always changing. We're going to go ahead and dive in and out of this one and move forward. And this is very, very profound healing time that is going on. But, just even like reflecting on my own experience, I grew up in middle-class suburbia, and as I grew older, I kind of distanced myself more and more from the neighborhood, from the groups that are there, and I started drifting towards more poorer, rural, urban decay type of areas and more messed up families. And that's where I started to find human beings that I could empathize with. That's where I started to see friends. And I can't help but feel genuinely that it is the people that oftentimes get put through difficult, challenging, seemingly totally unjust experiences. I genuinely see these people as the powerful healing souls on this planet. And so, 3 weeks ago, we talked about the solar eclipse in Pisces that was conjoined with Chiron. And I mentioned this quote, spoken directly from the Bible, which is that the last will be made first, the first will be made last. And what I was talking about was that respect to the people that are in the challenging situations. This is reality. These last several weeks has been confronting and dealing with reality. And reality is not totally pleasant at this particular time. And as we mentioned, what has been going on has really been the healing of the last several thousands of years of collective human history. So the solar eclipse conjoined with Chiron, and we feel Chiron. Chiron got injected into the collective consciousness. This is what happens in eclipse season, and we're in the middle of eclipse season. It's always a shaky, crazy, interdimensional, stuff getting sucked up, stuff getting shot out, stuff changes. This is long-term cycles that we're talking about. I mean, this eclipse season goes on till the new moon, April 7th, but then this really continues for another 5 months, and if you really look at it, I mean, these can even be 18-year cycles. And so this Chiron being injected into the collective consciousness, let's just talk about what that might be feeled as, perceived as. Yeah, the archetype of Chiron is a pretty profound, powerful, and somewhat heavy archetype. Yeah, he is extraordinarily beautiful. So beautiful that to perceive or to come in touch with this archetype in its fullness is to have our hearts ripped open from sheer beauty. And it's like when we watch a dramatic or a sad movie, this is what we experience, isn't it? Is our heart being shredded open, and then this love and this reverence pours out of us. And this compassion is really what it's all about right now. Compassion opens up and pours out of us. So Chiron is beautiful, but this isn't beauty that gets served to us on a silver platter. This is beauty that takes considerable rites of passage and inner strength to be able to get to this beauty. It's like we've got to get through all this stuff. So Chiron gets injected into the collective consciousness. He is this compassionate healer who experiences an eternal wound. This is why he's so beautiful. He's here to heal, uplift everybody, and yet we have been feeling our wounds ourselves. And the way this stuff works, the way Chiron is really tangibly felt, is it's not so much or always the end of the world chaos and crying and blah blah blah. It's like that has been a part of this period and that can be going on, but then it goes on and it leaves us with what? It's like all of this intensity. This could have been a depressing time. This is a time where, we could have been facing serious challenges, and it is exhausting. It drains this energy out of us. The best way I can describe this period that we're kind of in the middle of, kind of starting to now move through and come out of, is that this period has been sort of like a bleeding out of old. The way in the medieval ages they used to use leeches to suck stuff out of us. This is Chiron being in the collective consciousness. And the way he is felt is he's like, this eternal wound has been there, and it's like he's exhausted, and so he's just like this, it's like this moaning, and there's nothing left, and that we're still in pain, and it's still all there, and so there's just this, and that's been us, that's been the collective, and I think a few of us can maybe really deeply relate to this feeling, and as well as all of the lifetimes of guilt and shame that is being purged out of the collective consciousness at this time, like getting sucked out of us. And so I'm just going to begin and remind us that, I have the utmost reverence for the souls that feel in this stuff, that feel so trapped, that feel so low and so ashamed and so guilty. I bow to you. I really see these souls as the most powerful healing souls that are here. And the most powerful souls that are here are oftentimes the souls that see themselves last. They see themselves as the least powerful, the most fallen, the most ashamed, the most guilt-ridden. And this healing of the past age, we've got Chiron on the south node the last couple weeks. He's going to stay on the south node the next couple weeks. When any planet is on the moon's south node, particularly a slow-moving planet such as Chiron, it is taking that planetary energy from the past, bringing it into the present, so that way we can hopefully change our course into the future. Chiron is the wounded healer. We're bringing out the last age's wounds, the age of Pisces. It plays out differently for men and women, but it has a lot to do with deeply embedded guilt and shame. We are not enough. I'm not perfect enough. I'm not clean. I'm not pure. I'm not healed. I'm not capable. I'm not strong. This has been the stuff that's been brought up. And it needs to be released. And it is being released. We can feel it being released. And here is maybe something a little, of how we can sort of test how much guilt consciousness or shame consciousness do I need to remove from my system because it's clearly not coming from a healthy or natural way. There is such thing as natural guilt and shame. It doesn't always have to be bad. Yeah, I think the example I saw an astrologer make was leaving a baby out on the Autobahn. The baby gets hit, natural guilt. Don't leave your baby out on the Autobahn. However, let's use another example. let's say, just do this to yourself. Like, have someone come up to you and be just like, oh, you ought to be ashamed. You ought to feel guilty. And notice how much we automatically respond like, oh, yep, I should be ashamed. I should be guilty. And nothing even got said or nothing even got pointed out. We just have this consciousness ingrained in ourselves that we're not doing it right, that I'm not good enough. I mean, this can play out in so many different ways. We've got asteroid Ceres coming up to Chiron. This is the divine feminine is coming in, we're going to talk about. But this is also the healing of body issues, of gender issues. I'm not fitting the cookie cutter grade enough. I'm not fitting the health standard good enough. I'm not fitting the partner standard. There's a Libra full moon eclipse tomorrow. Okay, so this has not just been our typical magical fairy-like Pisces period, okay? And even the astrologers that knew that, there's always a thing it's tough to be the bearer of bad news, but I think myself personally that a lot of us might have even underestimated how powerful and profound this period has been. And I wrote an article on Chiron that's all about how the spiritual journey is not a one-way direction. The more we go down and allow us to discover and feel our own insecurities, our own inadequacies, our own wounds. So today, Jupiter is in Virgo square to Saturn in Sagittarius, and we've had this T-square that's been going on in the mutable signs Pisces, Virgo, Sag. And this has been bringing up our ideals. This is why the Pisces period has been challenging. We've had Venus, Mercury, Neptune, Ceres, Chiron, the Sun, all in Pisces during this eclipse, the solar eclipse a couple weeks ago, all square to Saturn. Saturn is in Sagittarius, 16 degrees, about to turn retrograde. I think either Wednesday or Thursday, Saturn turns retrograde. Saturn in Sagittarius is challenging. Do you know your shit? Do you know your truth? Do your ideals match up with reality? And there has been a hell of a lot of no, and that's what Saturn says no. Saturn says you can't do that. You don't have enough limitations. You overshot your mark. You were exaggerated in this area, and this has been a lot of what's coming up. Now, Jupiter on the moon's north node in Virgo, Jupiter has a totally different, optimistic. You can do it. Here is what is possible. Here is what we can do. And this major thing that's going on with Jupiter on the moon's north node is being okay with our human nature. Jupiter on the moon's north node in Virgo for most of this year is like, we need to accept our imperfections. We need to accept the healing process, which is a process of improving, and it doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually through time. So what's a lot of been happening with this eclipse with Chiron is the ancient wounds, the old wounds, the fears, the insecurities, the sexual inadequacies, the gender roles, the religious beliefs, all of these things. A lot of this does have to do with religion and the cultural beliefs that we got ingrained with before we were old enough to talk. This is how this stuff works. But it's challenging us. How much do these ideals match up with reality? And how can we start to put one foot after the next to start moving into healing? And can we be okay with our roles as human beings, which is not just meditate 2 hours a day and you'll be happy. No, this is a process. And we all have problems. We all have problems. We've all got big problems. For those of us who are aware and well, the majority of us, this isn't a one-size-fits-all thing, but living in today's world, many of us got problems, and we're confronting these things. And this stuff is all playing out in the presidential election and all of these things, but you know what? It's not going to be the president, and it's not going to be the people who elect the president who is going to be the ones that are changing the fundamental values of what it means to be a human being and why we are here and the process of healing that we are involved in, and one step after the next, improving through time, through effort, with perseverance, with patience, and most of all, with compassion. Yeah. So, we've got this lunar eclipse coming up, and this lunar eclipse, it's in Libra, so we got to look at Venus. Venus has just joined with Neptune in Pisces. All right, Venus is the ruler of Libra. You always got to look at not just the full moon or the new moon, look at the planetary ruler of that sign. See what it's doing by aspect to other planets. You got to look at the whole chart. So, Venus and Neptune conjoined in Pisces. This happened 2 days ago on Sunday. This is a reset and really a raising up of our ideals. Do our ideals match with our values? Venus and Neptune have been square to Saturn. Saturn is making us check. Is this reality? Can you do this? Does it work in your body? Is it actually happening in your life? Or is it fantasy? Are we just imagining how we want things to be all the time, and now we are confronting the realization that this stuff hasn't even happened yet in the real world? And yet we need to have values. And the full moon lunar eclipse in Libra is a lot to do with relationships. And also the balancing of the masculine and the feminine energy, which is something we're always talking about in these videos. And this is establishing justice in the world. Yeah? It's like as we look into ourselves and we discover all these wounds, all of this guilt, all of this shame, how are we going to do justice? Not only for the world, but ourselves. How are we going to do justice for the child that several decades ago had to go through this extremely misleading experience of being indoctrinated, of having to come into culture, of having to believe that this is the beauty standard, this is the relationship standard, this is what it means to be a man, this is what it means to be a woman, and then all this guilt and all this shame happens automatically. It's not our fault. But how are we going to do justice? How are we going to rectify this? Well, Ceres is moving up to conjoin with Chiron right at the time of this eclipse. So Venus is joined with Neptune. Ceres is joined with Chiron. Everything's square to Saturn. But this Ceres joining with Chiron, I think this is where we can start to lift ourselves up. And that's going to start to happen now throughout these next couple weeks. We've got the sun in Aries now. Mercury just went into Aries. Next week, Mercury is going to join Uranus, square to Pluto. We start having these direct revolutionary, I'm going to do it this way. We're going to start busting out of here. We're going to have new ideas, new directions, new realizations. So this stuff is all coming. Ceres is the mother goddess. She is the function, the principle of nurturance. She's a very Cancer-like energy. The mother, the nurturer, the caretaker. Yeah, she is the mother of nature, the mother of brains. And she joins Chiron. And this is like Mother Nature joining our wounds, joining with our guilt, our shame, our inadequacy, all this stuff that's been building up in us for thousands and thousands of years due to distorted cultural impressions, belief systems, dogma, etc., whatever. It's all been there. And now Ceres is coming. You know what? This is about love and forgiveness. There's really two ways I can see this energy playing out for the sensitive and the compassionate souls. When it's really, really chironic, we sort of come alive. We snap into mode. Oh yeah, I'm a spiritual being. This is why I came here, And I think that, we can be exhausted with our own wounds and we have to take care of ourselves. And it's like getting up and doing your frickin' job and even making breakfast can just seem like a serious, rite of passage. And then the other way this goes is we are helping all the other people, the people that are on their faces, the people that are way low, the people that need help. We snap into action. And that is the healing that is happening, is it not? This is when it becomes tangible. Oh, okay. Chiron is this wounded healer. When crisis happens, when bad things happen, when very serious, very sad, very upsetting things happen, there is another chapter that comes. There is the flip side that comes. And this is the time for us to be reaching out for help and us to be receiving help. And this is Ceres. She is compassion. She is forgiveness. She is love. She is, in Pisces, she's unconditional love. I don't care what you did anymore because I see that you're wounded. I understand why you would be so addicted to this thing because you're so wounded. you make really bad decisions, and this is compassion and forgiveness and wisdom coming from the true understanding of where we are and where we live. And this is what we need right now. This year and a half, this is the opportunity for us to end scapegoating. Stop blaming each other and ourselves for everything that's wrong in the world. That's not reality. And we can see how much scapegoating is still all pervasive. And we are here to move through and mature beyond that. The blame game and pointing fingers and, they don't understand me and blah, 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 they don't like me. And, we're very sensitive. We can have all these feelings. But at the end of the day, this has been a shredding open and an opening up. If we've had ideals that we've lost, if we've had possessions that we've lost, if we've had relationships that we've lost, if we've had family members that we've lost, this can be devastating. This can lead to grief. This can lead to periods of depression. There's nothing unnatural than this. Sometimes we need help. Sometimes we need to reach out. I mean, this period has been so intense. In the last video, I mentioned this is going to be a time where we're seeing how our wounds and our escapes are interconnected. When we can't lift ourselves up, maybe that's not because we're not doing enough yoga or we need to breathe through it. That's what I did. I thought, here comes this really heavy period. I'm going to do my Kundalini yoga and just breathe through it. And then it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm doing anything I can. It's like the chocolate and this is all minor stuff. It's just like we're trying to live day by day. And I am personally one of those people that there's no right or wrong way to do things. If you go through a super tragic losing your life, losing your family, losing your possessions, I'm not going to say, you shouldn't be on antidepressants because antidepressants are synthetic and unnatural. We know this. We all know this. But we all need sometimes the little steps, the little rungs on the ladder, one step at a time. And maybe you don't want to take antidepressants forever, and this is just an analogy. But we have to forgive ourselves that we're not totally healed today. We have to forgive ourselves that we are a human being on a spiritual / healing journey because they're one and the same today. And we might not be enlightened and we might not be perfectly happy today. And that's not because we're doing anything wrong or we're imperfect or we slipped off the path at some point. The people that go the most deep into it, go the most downward into hell, into the situations of this earth that need to be fixed, are the most powerful souls in those positions to heal those things. And this is what's happening right now. Ceres joining with Chiron is like lifting him up and bathing him and, massaging him. And this is this analogy that I got from my partner. She gets these really wonderful visions of the energy. So, this is, Chiron is a beauty we have to get to. Venus conjoined with Neptune over Sunday and through this week has been a reset of our fundamental values. How much are our values aligned with our highest ideals? Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. Once a year, Venus comes around and we take our values and we merge them with our ideals. And this is like, we need to uplift this. Once again, we have Saturn and Jupiter square. Jupiter is saying, you can do it. You're a human. Life is a process. It's about improving. This is this positive attitude that it's okay that we're imperfect and we're improving. We can have our eyes set on the goals, but we don't have to be there overnight, lest be an improper person. And then Saturn is there in Sag saying, you can't do it so easy. You can't do it so simple. Life is not so black and white. It's going to take effort. It's going to take trial and error. It's going to take lifting ourselves up and falling down and lifting ourselves up and falling down, and there's nothing wrong with this. We're not losing anything fundamental going through this process. We are rescuing what's fundamental going through this process. This wounding experience is allowing us to see what is already there. It might seem like, I became depressed, I became hurt, I felt bad, I had this be triggered, all this stuff became released because it was already there. It's not like this stuff happens to us and then, this stuff is being released. It's being purged from out of us. So there is a lot of opportunity for us to create justice and values and ideals in our lives, in our relationships at this time that are going to create a better sense of balance, of harmony, and therefore we're closer to unconditional love. Venus coming around to Neptune, Venus coming around to Ceres in a couple of weeks. This is us living more in unconditional love, and there's been a lot of removal, a lot of dissolving. Take away the boundaries, take away the limitations, take away the ideals, take away the no-nos or the need this. Get rid of that. And now there's openness, there's flexibility, and this is introducing to us, coming in the future, more inconceivable realities, more innumerable possibilities of what we can do, of what is possible, of what we are capable of doing. So this moon is at 3 degrees of Libra. It's a powerful degree. There's a Sabian symbol for every degree of the zodiac. There's a symbol for every degree. So 3 degrees, Libra, is a new day dawns, revealing a world utterly transformed. Well, that sounds pretty good. Let's hear from Dane Rudyard. He elaborates. This is transforming power, periods of silence and darkness, which lead to stirring revelations. This is real touch with cosmic process. That's Dane Rudyard's elaboration on the degree of the lunar eclipse tomorrow. The ruler of that eclipse in Libra is Venus, joined with Neptune, square to Saturn. Can we reset our ideals, our beliefs, our values, to not lose hope, to have our eyes set on the goal, but also to be realistic in our body, in our timeline, in our life on this planet at this particular point in the transition of the ages? We're moving into a time that's going to be different than it has been before. We are releasing and purging from our systems everything that needs to go. At the time of this eclipse, we also have Ceres and Chiron trine to asteroid Juno, which is in Scorpio. And this is, can we heal ourselves in order to create a greater sense of intimacy? That's what this justice is about. The Libra full moon lunar eclipse is illuminating the relationship dynamic, to observe the disbalance that is here, to observe the injustices, to understand how these injustices, it's not personal, it's coming from our age-old wounds, which is still very alive in culture. It's very apparent in culture. It affects us through our being raised in this world. This is being released, being purged out of us. Greater possibilities are coming. Greater doors are opening. We are more liberated. We are more far out. We are more inconceivable than we have been led to believe. To open up to greater possibilities. So that way we can gradually, one step after the next, take back our power. And this taking back of our power is also creating a greater intimacy with each other, which happens through feeling safe together. So we are healing gender roles, we're healing social roles. Libra is about justice. It's about balance, it's about harmony. Can we even the platform, even the playing field? So that way we can see each other as souls. It's not, oh, alcoholic, oh, messed up person, oh, transvestite, oh, child molester, Muslim, voted for this person instead of this person. Those experiences that are painful, that are wounding, oftentimes doesn't say who we are in our souls. It says what we're going through in order to recognize what our soul is all about. The experiences, the one step after the next, the how we reach out for help, the how we heal ourselves, says nothing about how we failed or how we haven't done a good enough job, or that we're messed up, that we're imperfect, and so we need to go seek out this. And it's like when you go to the hospital, when you go to the psych ward, it makes you feel crazy. And this is a time for us to recognize our inner insanity as a symptom of being who we are, which is not wrong. We will inevitably take our wounds and take our experiences that have not all been pleasant. They've not all been fair. I don't look out into the world and see the experiences that have been thrust upon many of my friends, my family members, and my fellow human beings, and I say, oh, good, yay, oh, good, they're getting a wonderful experience. I don't think or say that, but I do look out and I see these experiences, I see these tragedies, I see this harshness and this cruelty, and I see the souls that are there and are going through those experiences and are still there, and they're still alive, and they're still powerful, and they're still loving. And I, once again, bow to you. Those souls are the most powerful souls. It says nothing about what you're not and says everything about who you are. The fact that we can be in this place where there's so much contrast. And that's something we're really noticing. Today is Jupiter square to Saturn. These guys have contrast. The good that is here, that's happening here, the healing that is happening here, the profound spiritual nature that's being revealed here, contrasts heavily with the bullshit, with the arrogance, with the delusions, with the deceptions, with the ignorance, and with the scapegoating, and the blaming, and the copping out, and oh, well, this didn't happen because they didn't believe in the right thing, or that happened to them for whatever shallow reason. This has not been a shallow time. This has been a time of us recognizing how deep reality goes. And I'm happy to say that things will start to lift ourselves up. We need to know that this is a 6-month cycle that's going on, the changes that are going on now, the transitions that are going on now. This is stuff that we're going to continue. The themes that are created now are themes that we will carry through at least the next 6 months. We will be working through these themes, working through this healing, working through this compassion, expansion, dissolving more so into true unconditional love. But this is all in the service of creating justice, an increased sense of power, capability, and confidence in ourselves as souls. Black Moon Lilith is in Libra also at the time of this eclipse, in conjunct to Chiron and Ceres. Lilith wants justice, and she's this power, and she wants it now. And then Ceres and Chiron is the only way we're going to get it is through loving and forgiving ourselves and each other, through understanding what it means to be a human being and not taking it all so personally that we can't recognize each other as souls anymore. Now is the time to get beyond all the BS. When we look into our partner's eyes, what do we see? Do we see the clothes that they wear? Do we see the general mood? Is it their sexuality that we notice? Is it their tone in their voice? These are all the various layers on which we wear. We wear all of these layers like clothes upon our soul. But even the layers of experiences that we've been put through is just another layer on top of our soul. This is all storytelling. And this story that is being told is one of our overcoming. It's one of us reaching into the darkest places and bringing light there. And this is transcending the bullshit. This is transcending the shallow, limiting, don't go over there, that's dark and scary. Don't do that, that's breaking a rule and naughty. That's the shit that makes us feel guilt and shame to the point where someone could say, you should be ashamed, you should feel guilty, and we just say, oh, okay. Because maybe we don't have totally perfect knowledge and wisdom of total reality in nature. And maybe that's part of our human experience that one step after the next, we are realizing through time. And so we are allowed to give ourselves a little credit that we're okay where we are. You don't frickin' berate the infant child, you should have a job. So we are getting in touch with truth. We're getting in touch with our potential, our healing potential, which is seen in our capability to transcend. Alright, I've been babbling too long, the camera's dead. So, I was just saying, let this healing energy flow through us, let it recycle and recycle. Let this healing and compassion and surrender and undoing and dissolving and just, let it happen. Let it happen with us. Let us let go. of all the limiting boundaries, the mean voices, that you have to just surrender to it. It begins with us. It pours out onto the rest of the world. This is the greatest medicine, the greatest magic, the greatest potential we have to offer. When these things start going on around us, when the people around us start to becoming afflicted, we start to show each other what we are really made of. And what we are really made of goes so far beyond what we can even fathom. We have to, baby steps, allow this dawning new reality, revealing an utterly world transformed, to slowly but surely open, so we're not so blinded by the light that we can't appreciate slowly and surely what we are truly made of. Life is, despite appearances, always in balance. There is always a secret harmony, a secret melody, a secret beauty, a secret reverberation within all things. And that is the foundation of everything, which is an inconceivable and unconditional love. So let's remember that. Despite the waves, despite the up and down, it is all founded upon love. And I love you. I have been so touched by the amount of people that have reached out to me, that helped me through these recent struggles. I'm very thankful to be able to speak about all these things and to be able to communicate this, get feedback from all of you. I am truly blessed. I am very humbled to be here to speak to you all. And I'm so much wishing the best and the most healing journey for yourself, going into the future, for yourself, for your beloveds, for all those flying up above in those planes. Have a wonderful time. Namaste. I don't know. It's been crazy. I can't think straight. I can't talk straight. It's just one day at a time.